there's a fine line between drinking wine and squashing grapes in our business, and that's an example of it. That ball's on the ground right there in the red area, and that's the difference.
Hi everybody, I'm Missi Matthews. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Not a good Sunday night for the Steelers in Pittsburgh with the Dallas Cowboys in town. The Steelers losing 2 straight, moving to 3-2. Joining me today is Dale Lally of Steelers Nation Radio and Steelers.com to help make sense of the game that, Dale, did not kick off till 9:46. Went well into Monday morning, and it was not a good one for the Steelers of trying to rebound from the loss to the Colts.
No, and to steal Mike Tomlin's phrase there, if you're not squashing the grapes, you're often the grape. And so you're the one getting squashed. And while it wasn't a overwhelming loss or anything like that, in the scoreboard, you got doubled up in yardage. You lost the time of possession. Dallas went 0 for 3 in their first 3 red zone trips, which kept that game close. But the last one was the one that you needed, that last red zone stop, and you weren't able to get it. And the Steelers' offense just couldn't stay on the field in the second half of the game. 8 carries for 22 rushing yards in the second half of that game against a team that had been hemorrhaging yards, against a team that you had 70 rushing yards on 18 attempts in the first half, and you just couldn't maintain that in the second half.
Well, for everyone's sake, let's go back to the very beginning. It was a primetime game. There was a ton of excitement despite the weather delay, and a lot of special guests also there, as you see Snoop Dogg doing the terrible towel twirl. Things, though, kind of not as crazy in the first half compared to the second half. As you said, this was the Cowboys' first drive where they were able to get a field goal. Yeah,
and Dallas got great field position coming out of that with a kickoff return out to the 38. They didn't do much on this drive. They just picked up a couple of first downs, and the Steelers buckled down on that one. But you did give up the long field goal attempt, and so you'd like to be better on teams to open the game just to help yourself out a little bit.
All right, for the Steelers, though, starting fast has been, I feel like, the talk for the past 2 weeks, and they were able to also match a field goal. What did you think of this drive, and what could have been if a few things went a different way?
Well, as you see there, Missi, they came out with Justin Fields running the football there on some design stuff, and then we kind of got away from that. And later in the game, I thought they could have gone to that a little bit more because it opened some things up, and the Cowboys were missing some of their, and you see the missed pass there, again, a missed opportunity. And there's another one coming here down the seam to Darnell Washington that just missed. If you make some of those plays early in this game, it changes the complexion overall. There's another, Najee Harris led them in receiving yesterday on 2 catches. He was the only receiver who averaged double-digit yardage for this. They just couldn't get anything going down the field. It just seemed like everything was just a little bit off on the downfield passing.
Just a little miscommunication, you feel like, between Justin and the receivers?
I think he was just a little off last night with some of his throws. Now, I don't know if the ball was wet, if it was the moisture in the air. I don't know, but you shouldn't overthrow your 6'7" tight end down the seam by that much. And he's got a 6'1" cornerback on him. Or defensive back, make that throw, put it somewhere where he can catch it, and that didn't happen.
Right, and all right, here, so we're in the second quarter now. Dallas has the ball, and you talked about being able to have as many turnovers as the Steelers defense was able to create and not win the game. That's usually not how it falls when that stat falls in their favor.
Yeah, you saw some miscommunications. That was one there with Dante Jackson expecting help over the top. Fortunately for the Steelers, Dak Prescott tried to force one into the end zone. Not a real great throw there, and Dante Jackson gets the pick. They kind of, again, turned the Cowboys away in the red zone 3 times in that first half. Dallas is down there knocking on the door and can't get points. Those are huge, and usually those are game-turning plays, and in this instance it just wasn't because the Steelers' offense wasn't following suit. The Steelers did not play good complementary football last night. It just wasn't what you want to see there. And they got, again, doubled up in yardage in the first half. That continued into the second half.
Yeah, and, 6-3 at the half. The time of possession, you look at that, and the penalties, too. 5 in the first half. It was for both teams, but still. So let's move over to the second half now, where the Steelers were able to find the end zone in the third quarter. And this was a chance where we saw Justin Fields lead the game for just a little bit. Kyle Allen came in. but they were able to get it done as an offense.
Yeah, and they've done that in the second half of games this season. You thought, okay, now they finally figured some things out. They made some adjustments at the half, and now they're going to start to take control of the game here. But again, didn't play the good complementary football, because after this possession, until they got the second touchdown, they couldn't stay on the field. They only had 2 possessions all night where they had more than 2 first downs as an offense, and that's just not good enough. You left your defense on the field for 75 plays compared to 51 for the Steelers. Looking at Allen coming off the bench here and making that throw to Pat Freiermuth, really kind of sparked this drive. That was one that was the longest play the Steelers had to that point, of 19 yards in the passing game. And you needed to do more of that, and that's what they were trying to do, but for whatever reason, Fields just wasn't able to make some of those throws.
Yeah, it was weird with the medical timeout, him having to leave and being able to come back, but as you said, being able to pick up, and kudos to Kyle Allen for what he was able to add during this.
1 Steelers pass, 1 completion for 19 yards.
Hey, we'll take it. And there you see the touchdown by Connor Hayward. As we mentioned earlier in the first half, that missed connection, not able to pull that ball in, but this one was good, and Justin saw that he was wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. And they obviously came into this game wanting to use the tight ends, and were able to do that, but at least try to get the football to the tight ends. As you see, Dallas did the same there with Jake Ferguson. He was a factor in this one. And to me, one of the big factors and one of the keys to this game was not letting CeeDee Lamb or Jake Ferguson beat you. Make somebody else do it. And as we saw, a couple of the other guys did step up and do that for Dallas. Jalen Tolbert had 7 catches for 87 yards, and of course the game-winning touchdown. And for a second straight game here, Kevontae Turpin in the slot, a little shifty slot guy.
He's fast.
Yeah, much like what happened in Indianapolis the week before. That guy ends up getting 4 catches for 50 yards in this game, and it's 4 big catches for 50 yards, because the Steelers did do a good job on Lamb, and Ferguson didn't kill them, but the other guys were able to make some plays.
But I will say, that touchdown drive there, 16 plays, 90 yards, this is where you're starting to see the attrition to the defense of you lose Nick Herbig, then DeMarvin Leal goes out, you're essentially down to TJ Watt and Jeremiah Moon in terms of your outside linebackers, and things that just started snowballing in terms of getting worse here as we're in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Jalen Elliott took responsibility for both of the touchdowns in that game last night. And he's been so good for the Steelers this year. You saw in the first touchdown there, he just fell down. That field was a little slick because of all the rain. And then we'll see the second one here later, that 4th down play, and the guy made a play. This was a big play here. They finally got George Pickens involved, and for some reason the Cowboys defender comes over and smacks him to the ground. That personal foul was a big one. And, again, you get the ball to Pat Freiermuth here inside the 10, and he gets it in for the second week in a row. Pat Freiermuth has scored here.
He's a red zone scorer.
Yeah, and well-designed play, and they were able to get the ball into the end zone here, and you thought, okay, back in control again. But it just, the defense, I don't want to say you scored too soon, because you can never score too soon. You want to try to score when you can score. But, this 4-minute offense that the Cowboys put out there in this situation, they ran the football in their 4-minute offense against the Steelers and finished with over 100 rushing yards in this game. That had not been their MO all season long. And, I think they saw that the Steelers, again, had some of that attrition happening. The line, TJ Watt had to play the entire time there because they had no other outside linebackers.
Right.
And you're just running those guys ragged a little bit and beating them with some misdirection and things of that nature. And boy, this Elandon Roberts play was huge. That ball was on the ground seemingly forever, and the Steelers just couldn't fall on it.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that you can go back and say, just if it went the Steelers' way.
There's bodies all around it.
Right.
But Dak Prescott just beat them there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's, what happens in a game of inches, or as Coach used his wine analogy of what can go wrong. I mean, even, quickly seeing Isaiah Loudermilk, thinking about the blocked field goal that he had. There were things that did go their way.
Things that should be game-changing plays, and they just... It just didn't happen.
And there you see the game-winning drive for the Dallas Cowboys, and not enough time for the Steelers offense to do anything at this point.
No, and Mike Tomlin was asked after the game about using his timeout in that situation before the 4th down instead of saving it, for the last, you have to try to you trust your defense to get the stop, and if you get the stop, then nobody cares if you don't have a timeout left because you're taking a knee. You want to be set in that situation, and I thought the Steelers were in position once again to make plays on that. But Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback, and
he's paid like it.
He made a play. He made several plays in this game that, true professional. He's getting paid $50 million a year for a reason. He's a very good NFL quarterback, and he made the Steelers pay time and again with that. And sometimes you do have to tip your cap to the other team and say, hey, good job, you made the play. How many quarterbacks, on the goal line carry there, hand the ball off and just kind of drift back away from the line? He stayed right there, and he was cognizant enough to fall on that fumble. That could have been game right there. To your point, it's a game of inches.
All right, Dale, we'll get some final thoughts from you in just a little bit. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Arthur Moats will join us to see what he has to say about the Steelers' loss to the Cowboys. We'll be right back.
Hi folks, welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era.
I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s.
Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Wait, you're T?
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Let's talk a little bit more about the struggles for the Steelers' defense. We're bringing in an expert to do so, Arthur Moats, former Steeler, JMU Hall of Famer, kind enough to once again join us to talk all things Steelers. Moats, let's start with the third down struggles. What are you seeing in terms of what's going wrong and why they're not able to right that ship?
Yeah, well, if we're talking from a defensive standpoint, obviously the Cowboys were able to go, was it 9 of 15 on third downs? To me, a lot of those stems from being better on first and second downs. If you look at the Cowboys offensively, when they had 3rd and 8 plus, they struggled to convert some of those. Whereas the flip side was when you would see them in a lot of those 3rd and 5s or 3rd to intermediates, they were able to capitalize on it. Now we know they had the big 3rd and 14th earlier in the game, and some of that stuff you live with. But as a whole, I think for our defense to thrive, we need offenses in 3rd and long, because that's when you get TJ pinning his ears back, Nick Herbig pinning his ears back, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi and company. But when it's 3rd and 5, when it's 3rd and short, it's just very tough to continually have the best call and constantly win those situations. And I felt like last night we kind of put ourselves in a little bit too many of those spots.
The self-inflicted wounds, I'm sure you can speak to that, but giving up 15 and 16 play drives, that certainly doesn't help either, also when you're adding in injuries.
Yeah, 100%. That's very accurate. And part of that is us not being good enough against the run. We know the Cowboys came into this game struggling to run the ball or sustain production on the ground. But when you look at Rico Dowdle, rushed for 20 attempts, 80 something yards, that's way too much production from him versus our defense. Then when you add in a couple of untimely communication errors on the back end for us, now it opens up the opportunity for explosive plays. And that's how you get those double-digit play drives that the Cowboys were showing very frequently, especially in the second half of the game. And early, we were able to get those timely turnovers, right? A couple of red zone turnovers, and it makes you feel better about the scenario. Whereas in the second half, especially late in the game, we weren't able to come up with that timely stop, that timely turnover. And now it kind of has us with a different feeling regarding our defense.
You mentioned the communication issues. We saw some in Indy, also in this game. How do you clean that up?
Yeah, the big thing to me when I'm thinking of the communication stuff is one or two things. You either take the approach of simplification, meaning, hey, instead of us trying to get the perfect call every single time, instead of us trying to pass everything perfectly every single time, man, why don't we deal with the inconvenience of lock this coverage? So now we don't have to deal with, did you see it this way or am I seeing it this way? I'm hesitant because I don't know if you're going to read it the same way that I'm reading it. But the flip side is you're going to have less guys running free. Now, the downside is you are going to put yourself in some compromising positions versus certain calls, and that just comes with it. And one of the quotes that I always remember from Dick LeBeau, he would say, if you try to defend everything, you're going to defend nothing. You have to focus in on one or two things per call that you're trying to take away. And I just think that right now, specifically when we're talking about the coverage part, I do feel like we're trying to take everything away instead of us just saying, hey, there are certain weaknesses to this call. And if that's the weakness, that's what it has to be. But right now, I think that we're doing a little bit too much, and that is causing some of those communication errors on the back end.
All right, let's end on a positive note. TJ Watt hitting the 100 milestone, going over it actually. What do you think that means to him?
Man, for TJ, we know a couple of things. Number one, he cares about winning more than anything. So obviously for him, man, it doesn't feel as good because he wasn't able to get the victory last night. But at the same time, he understands the history and the significance of 100+ career sacks, along with being the second fastest player to reach that mark, only behind Reggie White. When you talk about those type of legendary guys, when you talk about those type of legendary numbers, that's the reason why TJ Watt is spoken about and viewed even in Steelers history as highly as he is, without necessarily having the championship to go with him just yet. But TJ Watt, man, for him, he understands that he is on a mission to be the best player to ever step on this field. And he, even in his own family, is chasing greatness in JJ Watt. So I think for him, big time accomplishment. He appreciates the heck out of it, but he will probably be the first to tell you that there's still more work to be done and he's nowhere near finished just yet. And that's the part for me that has me so excited, because I think that he can still get better. I think that this defense can be better, and he's a big part of that. So for me, I know he's excited about it, but I want to see, you know, how quick do we get to the next 100 as well?
All right, and Moats, you mentioned JJ. I think TJ's now 14 sacks away from tying his career record.
You see what's going on here?
You know that brother competition, how that works.
Absolutely. And that's been going on since those guys were kids. And now that TJ has had a chance to get into this league, it makes some noise. I mean, you even saw how it was when he won his first Defensive Player of the Year award. Big brother is like, that's cool, but you still got some work to do. So this is just to be another awesome feather in TJ's cap once he does officially surpass big brother JJ on the all-time sacks list.
All right, Moats, thanks as always. We really appreciate it. We'll be right back here on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
And the party is on at Acrisure. Oh my, absolutely phenomenal. Interception on a kick to the goal line. Touchdown, Pittsburgh.
That's just sensational. I can't even believe that I just saw what I saw.
And he's sacked by TJ Watt. You have to be here.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Dale Lally still here with me on the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. And Dale, the road doesn't get easier for the Steelers in terms of time of the games. They're going to head over to Vegas, a West Coast trip. It's a 4:25 game, but still you're going to get home late, and then 2 primetime games to follow that. Yes, they're at home, but what do you make of where the Steelers are sitting right now at 3-2 and what lies ahead?
Well, you know, you had the 3-0 start, and everybody was starting to get excited about this and looking ahead, and wow, they could be 5-0, and now you've lost 2 of those games, so you've given some of that back, and of course Baltimore beating Cincinnati in overtime on Sunday
help.
doesn't help. You know, so now you find yourself in a tie for the division title here, or the division lead at this point. I just wondered, I was thinking about this today, would people feel differently about this 3-2 start if, for example, they'd beaten the Cowboys last night, but the 2 losses came earlier than this? I understand it's 2 losses in a row. It's a bad taste in everybody's mouth. You need to get that and just foul it away, because it's a long season, and some of the things that are ailing them right now, again, it's a lot of self-inflicted stuff that, you know, penalties and you know, not being able to complete some passes that you should complete, or make some runs that you should make, or missing a block.
Yeah,
the communications on defense where, you know, you're giving up some chunk yardage, things that aren't really things that you typically see from the Steelers. I don't know that that's going to be indicative of what this team is going to be as well. I do think it's a good defense. I do think that the offense will get back to running the football more effectively and do better than that. I mean, they've had 4 different starting offensive line lineups in the first 5 games. They've had 4 guys make their first career start in the first 5 games. That usually doesn't lend itself to being even 3-2. So, you know, there's still plenty of football ahead. I think, you know, if you look at the overall AFC picture right now, there's some teams that we thought might be really good that aren't playing really good football right now. So if you can get this back, if you can get back on the winning track this weekend in Las Vegas, all could be forgiven.
Yeah, and you know, with the injuries too, I think we'll have to hear about Nick Herbig and DeMarvin Leal, but maybe Jalen Warren and Cordero Patterson, they get healthy and they can join the offense again, so we'll have to see. But thanks to everybody at home for watching. Thanks to Dale and thanks to Moats for joining me here today. That's going to do it for the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. We'll see everybody back here next Monday.